He didn't doubt her quietly. That would have been easier to dismiss as misunderstanding. He doubted her out loud in a room full of teachers and parents and students, with the kind of confident skepticism that only works when you believe the crowd is already on your side. "This is ambitious," Principal Andrew Whitlock said, leaning over the trifold display board with his hands clasped behind his back, like he was inspecting a science fair, not a student's future. He squinted at the wiring and the prototype housing, then looked up at Nia Thompson with a smile that wasn't friendly. "Where did you get help with this?" The question sounded innocent if you didn't know the language of it, but Nia knew it immediately. Help meant, who did it for you? Help meant, whose work are you presenting? Help meant, you're a black girl at a suburban magnet school, and this looks too good to belong to you. Nia didn't flinch. She had learned not to. She was 17 black and carried herself with a quiet steadiness people often mistook for shyness until they heard her speak about circuits, data, and design like it was her native tongue. She stood beside her project, an energy monitoring device built to detect dangerous electrical overload patterns in older apartment buildings before they became fires. Hands folded, chin level, eyes steady. "I built it," she said. "I got advice from my physics teacher on testing, but the design and coding are mine." Whitlock's smile tightened. "Mm-hmm." Then he said the line that made the room shift. "Well," he said, turning slightly toward the small audience gathered around the display, "we do love enthusiasm, but universities are looking for rigor, not gadgets." A few people chuckled politely. A white parent in a blazer nodded like the principal had just protected the school from embarrassment. Two students in the back exchanged a look that said, "Here we go again." Nia felt heat rise in her face, not because she was ashamed of her work, but because she could feel what Whitlock was trying to do. He was positioning himself as the gatekeeper of credibility. He was making her project sound like a hobby. He was softening her excellence into something cute and unserious before anyone higher ranked could take it seriously. What Whitlock didn't know, what he couldn't see because he had already decided what kind of student Nia was that the university representatives scheduled to tour the senior showcase that afternoon weren't coming to be impressed by polished poster boards. They were coming to recruit. One of them worked for the engineering college's scholarship program and had been tipped off weeks earlier by Nia's physics teacher that one student at Whitlock School had built something remarkable with almost no resources. And when that university rep stepped into the gym, stopped at Nia's display, and asked to see her prototype running, then offered her a scholarship on the spot, the same principal who had just tried to reduce her work to a gadget would find himself standing in front of a crowd with nowhere to put his doubt. Nia Thompson went to Westbrook Academy, a public magnet school outside Philadelphia that marketed itself as elite. The website was all bright smiles and state championships. The hallways were lined with banners and college acceptance lists. The school board loved to brag about diversity in brochures. In practice, Westbrook's honors tracks were overwhelmingly white and Asian, and black students were disproportionately steered toward supportive pathways, unless they arrived with parents who knew how to fight. Nia's mother, Rochelle Thompson, knew how to fight. Rochelle had been fighting systems her entire life. She was a home health nurse who worked double shifts and still found time to sit at the kitchen table with Nia's homework because she refused to let anyone else decide her daughter's ceiling. "They will underestimate you to see if you accept it," Rochelle told her once, after a middle school teacher suggested Nia might do better in less intense math. "Don't accept anything you didn't choose." Nia had taken that advice like scripture. She was brilliant in the way that looks quiet until it becomes undeniable. She didn't dominate conversations. She dominated problems. She loved physics because it was honest. If your math was right, the universe had to agree, even if people didn't. She loved engineering because it turned ideas into objects that couldn't be argued with. And she loved the kind of projects that had consequences beyond grades. The idea for her senior project came from a fire. 2 summers earlier, an old apartment building 3 blocks from her aunt's house had gone up in flames late at night. The news blamed an electrical malfunction. Everyone moved on. Nia didn't. Her aunt had lived in a building like that once. Old wiring, overloaded outlets, landlords who patched instead of repaired. Nia started researching what electrical malfunction usually meant in older multi-unit housing. She learned about load imbalances, arc faults, heat buildup behind walls. She read about smart breakers and expensive monitoring systems that wealthy homeowners bought to feel safe. Then she looked at the price tags and realized the people most at risk would never have access to those protections. So she built her own. Her prototype was a low-cost monitoring device designed to clamp onto a building's main panel lines and detect dangerous patterns: sustained overload, arc fault signatures, heat anomalies. It wasn't meant to replace certified electrical systems. It was meant to create early warning, an alert that could push landlords, tenants, or building managers to act before a small problem became a funeral. She built it in her bedroom, at the kitchen table, and sometimes in the school lab after hours when her physics teacher, Mr. Daniel Reyes, stayed late grading and let her use the soldering station. Mr. Reyes was Puerto Rican, mid-30s, and had been teaching long enough to recognize real talent. He didn't treat Nia like a miracle. He treated her like a mind worth investing in. "You know you're doing college-level systems work," he told her one evening while she tested her sensors. "I know," Nia said. "That's the point." Mr. Reyes smiled. "Good answer." Still, talent didn't protect her from Westbrook's culture. When Nia requested permission to use the advanced lab equipment, the assistant principal asked if she had adult supervision for something so technical. When she asked for a small grant for parts, the committee suggested she do a more accessible project. When she presented her initial design proposal, Principal Whitlock asked whether she'd considered something more realistic. More realistic. He meant smaller. He didn't say that directly. He never had to. Whitlock believed in representation as long as it stayed inspirational and non-threatening. He loved black students as symbols: photos for brochures, speeches for assemblies, applause at awards nights. What he didn't love was black excellence that challenged his authority to define what excellence looked like. The senior showcase was Westbrook's biggest spring event. The gym was converted into a mini conference. Rows of tables, trifold boards, prototypes, laptops. Parents walked around with phones. Teachers smiled and pointed. A few local business sponsors set up banners. This year, 3 universities sent representatives to observe student innovation and potentially offer scholarships or early admissions interviews. Westbrook's admin team was excited, not because they cared about students, but because universities impress donors and donors impress school boards. Nia's table was near the back, row D, table 18. Not the worst spot, not the best. She didn't care. She believed the project would speak. By noon, the gym buzzed. Students performed enthusiasm. Parents bragged. Teachers rotated like docents. Nia stood beside her prototype with a calm face and a tight stomach. She had practiced her explanation enough times that she could deliver it in her sleep. But she also knew how the room would look at her. Black girl, serious project, not much visible team support, no fancy branding. She knew she'd have to fight for attention. Mr. Reyes stopped by her table first. "You ready?" he asked quietly. Nia nodded. "As I'll ever be." He leaned in, lowered his voice. "The Penridge engineering recruiter is coming. She asked about you by name." Nia's heart kicked once. "She did." Mr. Reyes nodded. "So don't let anyone shrink you today." Nia glanced across the gym and saw Principal Whitlock shaking hands with a white student's parents near a polished robotics display. Whitlock smiled big there. That smile looked like power being comfortable. "I won't," Nia said. 30 minutes later, Whitlock arrived at her table with 2 teachers and a white PTA mom trailing behind him like a small audience. He looked at the board title, Low-Cost Electrical Hazard Detection for Aging Residential Systems, and raised his eyebrows. "You built this?" he asked. "Yes," Nia said. He leaned closer and examined the wiring. "Where did you get help?" Nia answered the way she'd already answered a dozen times. "I designed the circuit. I coded the detection model. Mr. Reyes supervised my lab access, but the build is mine." Whitlock straightened slowly, skepticism visible now. "That's impressive if true." If true, that was the insult. Nia kept her face calm. "It's true." The PTA mom smiled too brightly. "Oh, honey, that's wonderful. Did your dad help you?" Nia's jaw tightened. "My dad isn't in the picture. My mom works nights." "I did it." Whitlock chuckled. the soft laugh of a man who wanted the room to treat her confidence as cute. Well, universities love initiative, he said, but they're looking for rigor, not gadgets. Nia felt something in the air shift. The teachers beside him looked uncomfortable. Mr. Reyes across the gym saw what was happening and started walking toward them. Nia didn't wait. She reached under the table, pulled out the demo panel and said, "Would you like to see the data?" Whitlock blinked. "The data?" Nia clicked her tablet and pulled up recorded waveforms. Normal load patterns, overload patterns, arc fault signatures, heat correlation. She explained quickly and clearly how her model identified risk thresholds and why it reduced false positives. She showed logs of test runs and calibration. She showed safety disclaimers. She showed the plan for building-wide scaling. Whitlock's eyes flickered, not because he was impressed, because he was losing control of the narrative. He leaned back and said, louder than necessary, "That's a lot for a high school project." A couple of nearby parents turned to look. Whitlock liked attention. He liked using attention to define the story. Nia replied evenly, "It's a lot because the problem is a lot." Whitlock's face tightened. "Just make sure you're not overclaiming. We don't want embarrassment when universities visit." There it was. Embarrassment. He wasn't worried about her learning. He was worried about the school's image, an image he controlled. Mr. Reyes arrived then, voice calm but firm. "Principal Whitlock," he said, "this project is rigorous. I've reviewed her work and test logs. She built it." Whitlock smiled stiffly. "Of course, Daniel. We're just making sure expectations are appropriate." Nia watched him. She realized something in that moment. Whitlock wasn't just doubting her. He was preparing a defense in case she succeeded. If she failed, he could say he warned them. If she succeeded, he could claim the school supported her. Either way, he protected himself. Whitlock turned to leave, then paused and said, "Nia, keep it humble today. Let the project speak." Humble. Another coded instruction. Don't make us uncomfortable. Nia nodded once, not agreeing, just ending the interaction. Then at 1:17 p.m., the university representatives entered the gym. You could feel the shift immediately. Teachers stood straighter. Students smiled harder. Principal Whitlock moved toward the entrance like a host greeting royalty. Westbrook's admin team treated universities the way they wanted parents to treat them. There were 3 reps, one from a state university, one from a private tech institute, and one from Penridge University's College of Engineering. The Penridge rep was a black woman in her early 40s, wearing a navy blazer and a badge that read, "Dr. Lena Barnes, Engineering Outreach." She walked with purpose, scanning displays not for flash, but for substance. Mr. Reyes spotted her and subtly pointed toward row D. Dr. Barnes nodded once and headed that way. Nia saw her coming and felt her pulse rise, but she kept her posture steady. She didn't want to look desperate. She wanted to look ready. Dr. Barnes stopped at the table next to Nia's first, glanced for 10 seconds, nodded politely, and moved on. Then she reached table 18 and stopped completely. She didn't look at Nia's face first. She looked at the prototype. Her eyes narrowed in focused interest. "Is that a current clamp sensor array?" Nia's breath caught slightly. "Yes, ma'am." Dr. Barnes leaned closer. "And you're doing waveform analysis?" "Yes." Dr. Barnes looked up at Nia now. "Walk me through it," Nia began. She explained the problem. Electrical hazards in aging residential infrastructure. She explained why existing systems were too expensive. She explained her design, how the sensor array captured patterns, how the model detected arc fault signatures, how heat correlation reduced false positives, how the alert system worked. She spoke clearly, confidently, without overselling. She named limitations honestly. She explained safety protocols and why she never intended the device to be installed without licensed oversight. Dr. Barnes listened like a person actually listening. That alone felt different. Halfway through, Dr. Barnes asked, "Did you train this model yourself?" Nia nodded. "I built the rule-based classifier first, then tuned it with recorded sample sets and simulated loads." Dr. Barnes's eyebrows rose. "Where did you get sample sets?" "I created some using controlled loads and data from public safety reports," Nia said, "and I replicated patterns in simulation." Dr. Barnes paused. "You replicated arc fault behavior?" Yes, Nia replied and tapped her tablet to show the waveform signatures. Doctor. Barnes stared for a long moment, then said, show me the prototype running. Nia triggered the demo. A controlled load spike simulated an overload. The device registered it. The model flagged it. The alert indicator changed. The tablet displayed a risk tier and a recommended action warning. The display wasn't flashy. It was terrifyingly practical. Dr. Barnes exhaled slowly. This is very serious work. Behind her, Principal Whitlock drifted closer, sensing importance. His smile returned, eager now. Doctor, Barnes turned slightly and asked without looking at Whitlock, has this student been supported with lab resources and competition placement? Mr. Reyes answered calmly, limited resources. She built most of it at home. Dr. Barnes looked at Nia again. How are your grades? Nia replied, top 5%. Dr. Barnes nodded once. And your college plan? Nia swallowed. Engineering, electrical. Dr. Barnes reached into her folder and pulled out a Penridge scholarship packet. Whitlock's smile froze. Doctor. Barnes said, loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear, Nia Thompson, Penridge University would like to invite you to our Summer Engineering Institute and offer you an early scholarship recommendation, pending final review. Your work is the kind of innovation we fund. The gym around them went quiet, not because everyone heard the words clearly, because everyone recognized what they meant. Nia's throat tightened so hard she almost couldn't speak. She managed, thank you, but her voice trembled. Dr. Barnes smiled warmly. No, thank you for building something that matters. Whitlock stepped forward too quickly. This is wonderful, he said, voice booming with sudden pride. Westbrook is so proud of Nia. Dr. Barnes turned her head slightly and looked at him for the first time. Her expression was polite but sharp. I'm sure, she said. 2 words. But the room heard the edge. Mr. Reyes looked like he might laugh. Nia stood there holding the packet and felt the moment change shape. The same principal who had warned her about embarrassment now wanted to stand in her light. Doctor, Barnes continued, I'd like your permission to share this project with our faculty review committee. Nia nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Barnes handed her a business card. Email me your technical summary, and please apply. Don't let anyone tell you this is just a gadget. Nia's eyes flicked toward Whitlock involuntarily. Whitlock's face went tight. The surrounding parents suddenly became friendly. A white father nearby said, wow, incredible. A teacher from another department asked, I had no idea. A student who'd ignored her booth earlier now stared like Nia had become famous in real time. But the most important reaction was quiet. Mr. Reyes stepped closer and said softly, I told you. Nia swallowed hard. Yeah. Whitlock cleared his throat and tried to regain control by speaking loudly again. We should get a photo, he said, for the school newsletter. Nia looked at him, and in that moment something inside her settled. She wasn't going to be rude. She wasn't going to explode. She was going to be clear. Principal Whitlock, she said calmly, you doubted me in front of people. Whitlock blinked. Nia, I was just... You called it a gadget, she continued. You asked who helped me, like you didn't believe I could do it. Whitlock's smile strained. We always ask. No, Nia said, voice still calm. You didn't ask the robotics boys who helped them. A few nearby parents stopped talking. Mr. Reyes went very still. Dr. Barnes watched with quiet approval. Whitlock's cheeks reddened. Let's not make this... It already is, Nia replied, and I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. Silence. Then Dr. Barnes said gently but firmly, she's right. Whitlock's jaw tightened. He nodded stiffly like a man swallowing something sour. Congratulations, Nia. Nia nodded once. Thank you. And she meant thank you to Dr. Barnes, not him. Over the next hour, other university reps came by, drawn by the small crowd around her table. Nia repeated her explanation 5 more times. The more she spoke, the steadier her voice became. The project didn't shrink. It expanded, because now it was being seen by people who knew what they were looking at. By the end of the day, Nia had 3 contact cards and an invitation to present at a regional youth engineering summit. Whitlock avoided her table for the rest of the event. That night at home, Rochelle Thompson stood in the kitchen in scrubs, still tired from work, and watched Nia place the scholarship packet on the table like it was something fragile. Rochelle's eyes filled with tears. "They offered you that?" Nia nodded, finally letting herself breathe. "Yes." Rochelle hugged her so hard Nia almost dropped the packet. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. Nia's voice cracked. "He tried to make me feel stupid." Rochelle pulled back and looked into her face. "And did it work?" Nia shook her head, tears finally falling. "No." Rochelle nodded. "Good, because your work spoke, and you didn't shrink." The next week, Westbrook's newsletter featured a photo of Nia smiling stiffly beside Dr. Barnes, with Principal Whitlock positioned too close, grinning like he'd built the prototype himself. The caption praised Westbrook's strong STEM environment. Mr. Reyes rolled his eyes so hard he nearly sprained something. But something else happened too. A younger black sophomore approached Nia in the hallway and said quietly, "I saw what you did. I didn't know we could do that." Nia smiled softly. "We can." And that was the real ending. The school principal doubted the black student's project because disbelief came easier than imagination when brilliance arrived in a body he wasn't trained to see as brilliant. He tried to shrink her work into a gadget to protect the school's image and his authority. Then the university offered a scholarship, and suddenly everyone had to confront the fact that Nia Thompson didn't become exceptional at that moment. She had been exceptional the entire time. The only thing that changed was who was finally forced to look.